Welcome. I'm Adam Miller, host of the MBA Candidate Podcast and consultant here at The Art of Applying. I got my MBA from the University of Virginia's Darden School of Business, where I was a Consortium Fellow and Management Leadership for Tomorrow Fellow. Today, we've got a 9-part question about recommenders and the strategy around getting them to do those well and on time.
Hey there, you're watching Ask the Art of Applying. In this series, admissions experts on our team answer real questions from our clients who are navigating the grad school application process. Watch this series to gain perspective and get real expert answers to your most pressing application questions. And if you're interested in learning more about the expert advice, editing, and guidance we provide for the grad school application process, watch the free training in the link below in the description. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more application success stories, application tips, advice, and encouragement. Enjoy the video.
So, before we dive in, I'm actually going to just share a little bit about my recommender journey, and we'll see what the questions are and responses are in just a moment. So in my case, I had 2 letter writers for the applications, plus I had to have a third person in order to do the consortium, because you have to show a commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I had 3 letter writers in total. And the biggest tip I want to share is that I actually lied to all of them about when the letters were due, because I knew these people. They were my boss or my previous boss or my boss's boss. Those were the 3 categories they all fell into. And I did not want any of them to miss the deadlines, right? Like if I get all the essays done and then hit submit, but they haven't hit submit on their end, then I have to wait until the next round, and I didn't want to do that. So that's actually a tip that's not in any of these back and forths with the Q&A here out of the vault. It's something that I did just because I recognized that they might be late and they have other things going on in their lives, and writing me a letter of recommendation is not at the top of their list, right? Put yourself in the shoes of somebody 10 years from now where you've got an employee coming to you saying, I want to quit in a year. Can you write my letter of recommendation to help me do that? And if they really are a person you want to write a letter for, you're going to be a little bit sad about that. You've been spending time mentoring them and they're probably doing great work. And so it's a tough thing to ask them for at most companies. So you got to kind of hold their hand. And part of that may mean telling them it's due in August when it's due in September. In my case, I had a part-time job. Now my part-time job is doing this as an admissions consultant. But back then, my part-time job was in a brewery. So I did a little bit of bribing with beer to make them show that this is something I really cared about. And then last thing I'm going to share is I think it's super important that once you get into these schools, that you really do a good job of thanking them for all of the effort that they've put into your career and getting those letters done, right? It's not just enough to say a thank you email, at least in my perspective. You should write them a handwritten note or get them more beer or send a picture in a couple months of you on the beach or what it's like when you're actually at the school now. You know, these are the kinds of things that I think people who are invested in you want to see. It's something that I definitely am looking forward to having that kind of experience later on in my career when I'm a people manager. You know, again, my tips are lie to them about the timeline, tell them it's earlier than it is. Number 2, figure out what are some extra things that might incentivize them along the way. And number 3, thank them profusely. So let's go ahead and dive into our 9-part question and answer about recommender strategy. The question here on the left-hand side is, I am defining how to approach the people that will make my letters a recommendation. I'm curious about your recommendation on how to do so. I think that recommenders benefit from receiving kind of an info package. That's exactly right. I put together an info package myself. It included a bunch of bullet points, and this is personalized to each of the 3 letter writers. Bullet points about things that I had done that they'd seen that they might want to put in the letter of recommendation. As well as each of the schools I was looking at and why I was applying to those schools. Right, so they go on to explain that's why they're putting together those packages. As so, I may be going the extra mile. I want to share a custom-made package of info for each of the recommenders that accept help me. Perfect. This person has clearly gotten similar advice. So here's my questions. Number 1, what makes a good letter of recommendation? I know the basics. The person needs to really know you and be able to describe your behavior with details. Prestige is not what matters. Yes. So again, I'll pause here. You do not want to have the CEO of your company write the letter if you've done no work directly with the CEO. If they don't know you on a first name basis and you don't report to them or even a skip level away from them, there's no point in doing that. You just want to have it be your boss or your previous boss. And if you're not just applying to business school, maybe it's law school or public policy school. In those cases, maybe it could just be a professor. It doesn't have to be the president of your school. You want it to be someone who's seen your work firsthand, hopefully day in and day out for at least 6 months to a year. So yeah, prestige is not what matters. Someone who can get specific is what matters. Now they go on to say, should you recommend him or her to focus on achievements, on my personality? Yep, both of those. Should letter writers for scholarship submissions be treated differently as regular MBA application letters? So the only application scholarship ones are going to be that are different that I'm aware of are going to be the consortium, which again, you'll just add a third letter writer who can speak to your commitment to diversity and inclusion there. So let's go ahead and see what our consultant responded with. She starts with, overall piece of advice is to schedule a short phone call with your recommenders once you identify them. Yes. So I should mention that when I gave the packets to those folks, this is when everything was in person in the world. And so I didn't just send off an email with this package. I hand delivered it. It was a printed out thing. And a short phone call is going to be an amazing way to answer whatever concerns they have to make sure they're committed to helping you with this. And so that may be a much easier thing to do than just writing up a super long email. Another thing to think of is a part of your overall application package. Yeah, so these are just one thing, right? And what I tried to do was say, okay, based on the essays that I'm writing, what are the things I'm not actually writing about that they could speak to better than I can? Because if they just tell the same exact stories that I tell in my essays, it doesn't really add that much value for the admissions committees. Whereas if your letter writers can speak to something different, that's great. It keeps them interested in reading about your profile and highlights an additional thing that they can know about you. So keep that in mind with whatever points you want your recommender to highlight. Now into your questions. Number one, what makes a good letter? I would say highlighting how the recommender worked with you, what you did, what's unique, what are your strengths. So exactly, just as much as they possibly can say about you, they should do that. What else? What would you recommend to focus on? MBA and scholarship letters sometimes have different prompts. You need to do some research to understand the prompt that your recommender is getting. Each school's prompt is a little different. Exactly. So when you go to each of the school's websites, they'll explain what the process is. And we're happy at The Art of Applying to take a look at that stuff and give you our perspective as it makes sense, because we have the consultants that I am and the various people on our team is we only take a limited number of clients at a time, usually just 1 or 2 clients at a time. So we're going to look at exactly all the schools that you're looking at to make sure that you're not missing anything. And some ask for a letter, some ask for a questionnaire. Exactly. So you as the person who's applying, you don't really see exactly what the letter writers are getting. Some schools are just saying, just email in this letter, right? Kind of just a 1-page Word document they'll turn into a PDF. And others are going to want them to fill out a questionnaire with rank this person on a scale from 1 to 10 for leadership potential, 1 to 10 for data analysis, so more of a, just survey that the person's filling out. Maybe a short Q&A in there with say 10 words about this person, or give a 250 word example about a time they did this. And so there's a variety of things that the schools could send to letter writers that might not necessarily be an official letter. And some do both. So again, the schools will tell you what the letter writers are getting. And if that's not ever clear, you can hopefully just ask your letter writer, hey, what are you seeing? What can I do to help you share the best possible version of me in this application process? So in general, though, it's just going to be a letter and maybe a few back and forth about what it is that you've done. Great. So that's question 1. We're going to try to go a little bit quicker now with question 2. How university-wise addressed must they be? So like basically, do you have to have these be really specific to each school? In addition, should the letters be specifically addressed to the culture? If yes, what information regarding schools must I share with the recommenders? If recommender is willing, should adapting the recommendation to the school really make a difference? And we respond back, in terms of addressing your fit for the school, you want to make sure that the recommender understands your reason for why you're applying to that school. The short answer is yes. If you are applying to Harvard Business School, you want to make sure they're addressing this letter to Harvard Business School. And it's helpful if you, again, if they don't know anything about Harvard Business School, give them a little bit of context, right? Like the case method is a big deal there. You might want to highlight why you've been good at being assertive in meetings, or might do well in a large classroom that's going to push you on subjects you're not familiar with. So yes, it's helpful if they are a little bit specific for those schools. Now, I also want to kind of table the consortium, because the consortium is this common app that a lot of our clients use. And in that case, because you're getting a letter, each of those letters is for 6 schools, they do not need to be specific. It's just a general, this is why this person would be great for business school letter. Anything else that we answered here? In case your recommender is an alum of the school you're applying to, then they can write about how you'll fit the school's community as a student and future alum. Absolutely. That's another reason why it's good to have them personalized for some of these schools, is because if they say, I went to this program and I could see why they would fit in here, all the more reason why the person reading that is going to say, oh, we probably should take a serious look at this applicant. Number 3, if they are already writing letters for 7 schools or other scholarships, how can I facilitate their work regarding getting to know the schools that are unknown to them? And we responded with, spend some time thinking through why you're applying to this school, what you bring to the school, and what you would add to the community of the school. You could pinpoint some unique aspects of the school: courses, student orgs, practical opportunities. Wonderful. Let's go to the next one. Should I ditch a recommender that tells me to actually write myself the letter and that he or she will sign it? Don't ditch them, but don't let them do that. That's not allowed. It's not ethical. And it's lazy on their part. I wouldn't ditch them. They're just trying to see if they can get out of it. Maybe ditch them if you have other people that could be better suited to do so. Maybe they're trying to hint at why they don't feel like you worked closely enough together. But if this is your boss or your previous manager or someone that knows your work well, it's probably just a matter of nudging them back in the direction of, nope, I can give you some bullet points of things that you can think about, and I'm happy to take a look at the letter once you've drafted it. But no, I'm not going to write this for you and then have you sign it. I can see how this scenario might actually benefit the applicant rather than harm. Yeah, I'm sure there are people who've done it, but do not do that. And we responded back, this scenario happens all the time. While not ideal, we can help you edit the letter. Again, I think having a conversation with the recommender in this case would go a long way. Yeah, we can certainly, again, we're not going to interface as consultants at the Art of Applying with your letter recommender. But if you get a hold of one of those letters and send it on to us, we're happy to take a look at it and say, hey, make sure they highlight this part a little bit more, a little bit less, or can they just add an additional paragraph here? Those are the kinds of things we can do, and we certainly recommend you do that yourself as well. Number 5, how do the letter writer's submission processes actually occur? In order to give a kind of heads up to them at what should I tell them regarding what they're actually committing to doing. Yeah, as a person who hadn't written letters, I'm not exactly sure what they're seeing. So let's see what we responded with. It varies by school, but most are online submissions. Your recommender either uploads a PDF copy of their letter or answers a short questionnaire. Yeah. So I don't know what the online portal thing looks like. It's probably pretty user-friendly because they're doing so many of these and they don't want to have this be an issue for them, right? The schools don't want to get a bunch of angry emails from business leaders and from applicants. This usually involves your recommender either creating an online account or having a specific link emailed to them. Makes sense. They don't want to have it be anybody could upload to this thing, right? So when you fill out your application, what happens is you put in an email address to kick it over to the letter writer, and then it'll become their deal to log into that system and deal with whatever they're seeing on their end. It's not like they just fax in a letter or mail in a letter or even email a letter anywhere. What they're doing is they're going to some kind of portal, and it depends on each school what that portal looks like. Number 6, based on my research, they should spend time creating the letter, and then they will have to submit it into a specific platform from which they will only have access to. Yeah, that's exactly right. I feel like we just answered that, but let's see if I missed anything. Be sure your recommender knows their prompt before they start working on the letter, and the recommender should know whether they're submitting a letter or answering a questionnaire. So really, yeah, just it's their responsibility to make sure they don't flub anything up. Number 7, if my recommender asks whether he or she should talk more about my weaknesses in order to convey a not so perfect image, what should they say? Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, if they only give 10s on the questionnaire or say, this is the greatest person on earth and they're going to solve poverty and world hunger and become a trillionaire, that's probably not realistic, unfortunately. And so, yeah, just like when you get a question in an interview where they say, tell me about your strengths and weaknesses, even though I'm tired of that question, it's good to have something in there to show that you have some areas of improvement, right? If you didn't have any areas of improvement, you probably wouldn't even be going to business school. So think about what weaknesses each letter writer has seen of yours, and hopefully there's a way you remedied those along the way a little bit, or started to make progress, or maybe business school will help remedy those things. So yeah, it's good to show that you're not the perfect being. If your recommender is addressing a weakness about you because they were specifically asked to comment on this, they could refocus the answer to discuss how you're filling the weakness or what you're doing to improve. Yep, so that's basically what I just said. Number 8, submitting applications for Graduate School of Business, and I think this is supposed to be HKS. Pretty sure Harvard Kennedy School. I'm not sure what KHS is. But for example, should I repeat recommenders? Do actually getting 4 different recommenders benefit me rather than sticking to just 2? So yeah. Oh, KHS. I think that's like the Knight Scholarship Program. So that's a specific scholarship program that Stanford GSB, their business school, has. So I apologize, not HKS. They're talking about a scholarship program, I think. So should I repeat? Quality over quantity here. You want your recommenders to be the strongest recommenders. For the GSB and KHS program, you just want to be sure that if you use the same recommenders, that the recommenders answer the prompts they're given for each program. So that technical of a question, what you're going to want to do there is make sure you work with your Art of Applying consultant, that you reach out to the admissions committee if you're not sure, that you ask other people who are actually at the school or who went through that program. We've got other consultants to really chime in on those like super detail-oriented things. I agree with the response here, though, of don't feel like you need to get fourth or fifth or sixth person to write letters. If it's just an extra scholarship, you probably can have that same person who wrote the main letter fill out one for this scholarship that they have in addition. Last question. Are there any examples of good letter of recommendations or guidelines you would recommend me to follow or check? And the answer is yes. We have some letters in our Application Accelerator Resources folder. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to show that on this video. You've got to be a client of the Art of Applying in order to check it out. But please do reach out to us if you're interested in learning more. And hopefully this session was informative and fun, and we look forward to hearing from you soon. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.